Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, it's that time again for us to come on in, learn something from our guests coming in, okay? Something that you can grab a hold of, just one little nugget of information that can help you get through whatever you're going through. All right, maybe the same thing, similar things, maybe something totally different, but their idea, their way of doing may help you as well. And then the best thing about this, pass it on, pay it forward, help the next person get through a struggle and have a great life. All right, today we're going to talk with a guy's named Dallas, okay? But he said he found he was adopted. Then later on, he becomes suicidal. Then he got addicted to drugs and alcohol. And now he is sober, pain free, and we're going to learn how he did this. So, welcome to the show, Dallas. Where is it at? Where's his name? There it is. Goodlet.
Yes, sir. Yes, thanks for having me.
Hey, appreciate you being here and sharing your journey, your story. Again, sometimes it's not a pretty story at the beginning, but I love the outcome when I get to talk with people like that's been through this.
Yes. Well, I just tell you kind of how my journey started. I like to break my life up into chapters, and chapter one, I would say, started when I was about 5 years old. That's when I found out I was first adopted. My mom put me up on her lap. She just explained to me that, that we're your real parents, but we adopted you from another family. They didn't get, like I say, they didn't get in real specifics at that time. I was 5 years old, and that's kind of when I feel like my life started. Right there is kind of when I felt different. I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. I felt like I had a lot of shame in me, a lot of embarrassment, and even a lot of anger at that age, because I just felt like that I wasn't wanted. I had a lot of questions at that time, just being 5 years old. So that's really like I feel like my life just kind of started. And from then on, from about 5 to 19, a lot of trouble in school, a lot of trouble even with law enforcement, fighting, a lot of, like I say, just immense shame and pain and regret. And
there's a lot of anger built up for not knowing. Like you said, felt like you wasn't wanted, that you just pushed off and given away. And at 5, there's a lot of things to deal with at the age of 5.
Right. Well, just being a kid's hard enough growing up in the world.
Exactly.
And right, and then let alone finding out that you were given up for adoption. And I mean, even at that age, I knew what was going on. So, it just led to a lot of troubles in my life. But then again, I don't want to paint it too bleak of a picture, because my hope for anybody out there is life is all about perspective and how we kind of see the world. So even at that time, I grew up with a great family, a very big family, aunts, uncles, cousins. So it could have been way worse. I look at a lot of kids that grew up in foster homes and get bounced around homes. It could have been way worse. But, there was obviously just things I wanted that I didn't have that other kids had, and that was just somebody to call my mom and dad. It led to just a lot of pain from about 5 to 19. And then, at 19 years old is really when I spiraled off into drug and alcohol addiction. And at that age, like, I grew up thinking I at least knew who my biological mom and dad were. And I'll get into all that here in a minute. But at 19 is when I found out that they were who I thought they were. My biological parents were in fact not. So that's when I kind of went off the deep end with drugs and alcohol abuse. That lasted for a long time. Growing up, I thought I at least knew who my biological family was. Like, I used to wrestle, big into sports, and I would always see this family at wrestling tournaments. So I would see them, and I thought, hey, there's my biological brothers. There's my biological mom and dad. So I never spoke with them because, again, I had a lot of anger and resentment towards them, a lot of that shame. So I would see them, but I never even spoke to them. But my dad and mom, they would point out, they would say, that's who we adopted you from. And these words are very key. You'll find out here soon.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So, at 19, how this went, it's kind of chapter 2 of my life. I was working at a Kmart. If anybody remembers Kmart's, I don't know if they're still even around right now.
Oh, I remember Big
Yeah.
K Kmart.
Oh, yeah. So I was 19 at that time. I didn't go to
Blue
college.
light specials.
Right. Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I was kind of drifting through life at that time, and I was 19 working in the garden department. I can remember this like it was yesterday because it was one of the biggest moments of my life. And who I thought my biological mom came in that day and wanted to, she gave me her phone number, and she, wanted to talk. Well, again, I didn't want anything to do with her. So I took the phone number, I was respectful, and just put it in my pocket and went home that day. And when I went home that day, I was talking to my dad, and I said, Dad, her name was Beth, and I said, Beth came into the store today and, wanted to talk, and I just don't want anything to do with her. And that's when my dad looked at me that day, and he said, well, Dallas, she's not your biological mom.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, I explained this
But they
the same
had
way
told you that. But they had told you that.
Well, and here's where it gets tricky. So,
Yeah.
at that time, and it's the way I explain it to everybody, like, how'd that feel? And I just tell people it's kind of like, if you ever see like a war movie and there's a soldier kind of steps on a landmine and
Mm-hmm.
or steps near one, there's this like loud explosion and everything's kind of slow motion. That's kind of how I felt. Any shred of identity that I barely had it anyway, I
Yeah.
felt like everything kind of exploded, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what are you talking about? And that set off about 5 years of very misguided anger, hatred towards my parents because I felt like they had lied to me. How
Mm-hmm.
could they not tell me this? So, fast forward 5 years after I took some personal steps to get over the pain and the anger, we had a talk, and they explained to me that the courts, when you have a closed adoption case, you're not supposed to know you're not supposed to know any information.
Yeah.
And they were advised by the court counselor and the kind of a therapist there that that's how you explain it to your child. You don't get into details, and you wait for your child to come talk to you and ask questions. Well, I never wanted to talk about it, so I never asked any questions.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get specifics because, come to find, it would have been too much for me to handle at 5 years old. I found out my biological mom, I was actually taken from her from the state. She was placed in a mental institution, and the state had taken me and then put me in a foster home. And that's who I just always thought was my biological parents, and they weren't.
Yeah.
So, again, that was one of the lessons I learned on this journey, was to give people the benefit of the doubt and see the good in people. And my parents, they didn't have any intention. They weren't setting out to lie to me, to hurt me. It was just what they were advised to do by, so-called professionals, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
So like I said, I just never really brought it up because I didn't want to talk about it with them. So they were kind of waiting for me to bring it up, and I was waiting for them to bring it up, and just nobody did.
Yeah. It's amazing how these so-called professionals, that they're not in that situation,
Right.
but they're telling everybody else what they ought to be doing.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
So I you have to understand that part. Okay. Now, so a lot of times, neither voluntarily or taken away, it's better for you to get into that adoption area than at home. That's why people volunteer, give them up. They know they can't give them the life they deserve and moving on. But of course, those people, they try their best to hang in and find out how they're doing, going to school and whatever. Mentally with your mother, I don't know how she would, if she even try to keep up with you like that. But yeah, it's usually when they're like that, being taken away, it's something going on. It's supposed to benefit you in the long run
Right.
to grow better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I had come across some handwritten letters she had written to me.
Okay.
Then she passed those along to my foster family, and it was kind of sad because, like, her handwriting is kind of weird. It looks just like mine, and it was all coherent. She said that she had got put in this mental institution and for drugs, I suppose. And she said, once you're in these walls, even if you're not crazy, it'll make you go crazy.
Yeah, I can believe
Um,
that.
so yeah, I mean, the letters she had written, they seem coherent and normal, but then again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But like you said, I'm sure there was a good reason for the state to come in and place me in a different home, obviously. So, I don't look back with any really regrets in life at all about anything. So I'm sure there was a reason for it.
I
So,
remember, I remember, well, when I was like 14, 15 years old, I guess, and some kids had moved across the street from us. And my mom and dad, I don't know if they knew them or got to talk to the parents or whatever, but found out that the brother sister, they were twins and
mm.
they were adopted through this couple.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and so, but they told us, my mom and dad told us about it, but I never said anything to the kid, never talked about it or anything like that. And I'm in a wheelchair. I got my neck broke playing football. And I
Mm.
was in bed one day and I'm like 20 years old. And then this guy, the boy, comes over to me and says, "Oh, James, I'm going to have this talk with you." He said, "I don't want you to feel anything different about me or anything, but I'm adopted." I go,
Uh,
"Yeah?" Yeah. And I said, "Man, I've known about that for about 5 years now." "What?" And I said, "I just figured you knew about it." I said, "Man, I don't care if you're adopted or anything like that. We're friends, and
right.
that's who you consider your mom and dad." And but it was strange. He didn't find out again till like he was like 16, 17 years old.
Oh, geez.
That late in the year, and so he was really questioning things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, like I was saying earlier, things could always be worse. Like at least I knew when I was a young kid that I knew. Um, I would have hated to find out that I was, adopted at an older age. I mean, yeah, I found out that my biological parents weren't my biological parents, but like I say, I hear some stories where people are in their 30s and go their whole lives, not knowing, and then find out one day. So,
Saw some
yeah.
weird story. I don't know how I came across it. And this man and woman are dating, and then come to find out they were brother sisters,
Oh
and
no. Well,
because they were put up in adoption in the
yeah,
same city or wherever a community, but at different houses. But they were
yeah.
going to school together and everything, and no one told neither one of them anything different until they
Well,
found out they were dating.
it's funny you mentioned that because that was always a fear of mine. Like I would meet someone at a bar or somewhere, and then have a child, whatever, and then find out
Yeah,
that's my biological sister. So that was kind of a weird.
I can
I don't say
imagine
it's a
that would
rational
be.
fear, but looks like it
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
like it
yeah.
happened.
I would think that would be a concern. Yeah, that
Right.
if I'm out here, how many other brothers sisters are out there?
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all right, so you went through this depression where you're doing your drugs, alcohol, and we don't have to get into the whole details of that. But that went on for like how long, and then finally what got you to wake up and move
Yeah.
on?
So yeah, like I say, when I found this out at 19, I had already been drinking a little bit in high school, but smoked a little pot here and there. But
I
when
would
I
say
found that out,
who hadn't?
right. I was, probably like most high school kids, but yeah, when I found that
Yeah.
out, it was pure. Like the way I describe this to people, like when you hear suicide by cop,
Mm-hmm.
I was like suicide by drugs. So
Okay.
I luckily grew up too in a church in a Christian household, and
Mm-hmm.
suicide to me was kind of the ultimate sin. So I never had the guts or wanted to kill myself, but I was hoping to through drugs and alcohol.
I
So
got you. I got you.
yeah, so about 5 years. I mean, I was drinking. I mean, about a fifth of vodka every day, smoking pot from the time I woke up, from the time I went to bed. I mean, literally, I would be smoking pot before I even went to the bathroom in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, Copious amounts of cocaine. There was times where I'd be doing so much cocaine, my heart, I felt like it would explode. And instead of going to the hospital, I would do more, just hoping, just blow it up. This is it. I just had no self worth. I had no value. I felt like nobody, and especially when I found out that foster family had given me up for adoption too. I felt like just I had no worth. Like nobody loves me. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so, um, and
Well,
even when I couldn't,
you're trying any way you can to get rid of that pain.
right, and yeah, and even if I couldn't find drugs or alcohol at that time, I would go to Walmart and pick up like cold and flu medicine and just take a bunch of that, and then there was times I felt like I was having a stroke on that. Um, so yeah, it was just, and then cigarettes, and then anything like even overeating. I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am now. So it was literally anything I could do to put in my body to numb the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that lasted about 5 good years. And in that 5 year span, I probably spoke to my parents like 3 times in 5 years. I just had so much anger at them. And it was just a bad time in my life, horrible time. I'm surprised I'm not dead from it. So, anyway, after that period, I was about 24 years old. And what I would say, besides my daughter being born, the most important day of my life was this day. And I took a bunch of psilocybin mushrooms. And this was 20 years ago almost. And now I know they're becoming a little more mainstream to treat people with depression and anxiety. But this is, like I say, this was before any of that was even talked about. So
Yeah.
I took a bunch of these, and I ended up at a cemetery of all places. I don't know how I even got there, but I ended up at a cemetery, and the whole time I was messed up. I was still praying every day, wanted to get help, but I did not want to be in this position. So I felt like this was a day God like came to me and said, "Let's change this." So I ended up in this cemetery, and I remember like it was yesterday. It was about the sun was about to go down, and I was looking over these gravestones, and as the sun was like going over these gravestones, that's when I felt like the old me. It's almost like a metaphor, symbolic. Like when that went over those gravestones, that's when the old me died, and then a new person like was born in an instant. So all these thoughts, all these labels that I put on myself, the no worth, no value, the shame, the hatred, regret, all that stuff, it was just switched like that into positivity. So I was overwhelmed with love and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance and forgiveness. And something I tell people all the time too is like when you're in a state of alcoholism or drug addiction, one of the biggest things we can do is forgive ourselves,
Amen, brother.
right? Because we
I
blame
tell other
ourselves.
people, we're taught to forgive others that
Yeah.
we have felt that wronged us, but no one tells us. And I don't know the Bible, perfect like a lot of people, but I don't remember reading it where it says I got to
Forgive
forgive
yourself.
myself. And you
Right.
would think in there somewhere it would tell you that, and it
Yeah,
might
well,
do it.
right.
Like I said, I don't know the whole Bible per se, like yeah, and it might say that, but
Well,
yeah,
and yeah.
we have got to forgive ourselves, and we are the worst critics on ourselves,
Oh,
the
yeah.
worst judgment on ourselves. No matter
Right.
what anybody else says, we're 10 times that worse. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. We got to forgive what we've done in the past and move forward.
Right. And you nailed it there. Like, not only do we have to, like, I had to forgive myself as far as like what you said, there's like all the labels I put on myself because we talk to ourselves a million times worse than any stranger on the street would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you would never know it from me. I put on a happy face. I mean,
Oh yeah,
nobody even really knew I was messed up all the time because I was a functioning drug addict and alcoholic. I mean,
yeah.
hardly anybody knows. And, but not only do you have to forgive yourself for just how you talk to yourself, but like you said too, like when somebody is on drugs and alcohol, I can't tell you how many, I don't want to say unforgivable acts I did, but I did a lot of stuff that I'm not proud of at all. Um, Things I would think, things I would say, and when you do those things, a lot of times you're going to do more drugs and alcohol to numb that. So not only was I numbing the feeling of being adopted, not loved, I was also numbing things I would do from like the prior weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff
Mm-hmm.
I cut somebody out, or again, just things I would think. So yeah, self forgiveness was a major thing. So when I was on that, I guess you call it a trip. The way I explain this to people is I feel like I went through about 20 years of therapy in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was just I was just transformed. And that next day, this was like I say late at night, and I think I just slept in my car that night. And I went home the next day to my parents' house, and I just started helping them. So now it was about serving others rather than serving myself.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know who I was. They're like, "Who is this guy?" Because
There you
before then,
go.
I mean, like you
Now,
look at our
now
house at
you're
home, and
now you're not high and drunk or anything, and they're going, "Are you on drugs?
well, or yeah, that not only that, but just
This
like
ain't you.
helping
What's
them.
happening?" Yeah.
Right. So like before that, you'd see my house, and I had like 15 like holes. Like they used to say anything, I just punch a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Um, and it just changed after that. So I'm 41 now, and that happened when I was 24. So in like 16 years, we haven't even so much as argued, like got an argument.
Yeah.
So, I mean, seriously. And so it just it repaired everything. So that was kind of the next step on my journey was that. And then, yeah, from about 24 to 30, I was still drifting through life, and I was still drinking some, and I was still smoking pot, but it didn't come from a place of self-hatred. So
Yeah.
I was more just like most guys that at that age, like I say, didn't go to college and have a degree. I was bartending, just trying to find my way in life. But as far as that self-hatred, it was gone. And I've been the same since then, thank God.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then, like I say, around 30 is when I had my daughter. And that's when, so in 11 years, I've been drunk twice. When she was born, I pretty much stopped drinking. I would socially drink here and there, but as far as waking up with a bottle and starting to drink during the
Mm-hmm.
day, that was done with, because she was my only blood I knew, at that time, my only blood. So, well, I shouldn't say at that time, still is my only blood. So I just had a new purpose in life. I wanted to be
yeah.
a father. I wanted to be somebody who wasn't there for me when I was a kid. And she just changed everything in my life. So that was kind of the next chapter of my life. And yeah, I'd say, after that, another major thing, and people probably think this is crazy, but I'd say the third thing that really changed my life, besides the mushrooms, my daughter, was I took up walking. Walking long, long distances. And I'm not talking like walk a mile or two a day and go home. I'm talking like 5, 10, 15, 20. Most I've walked in a day was 30. I walked 30 miles in a day before. And that
Wow.
was coming off and that was coming off like a 5-day fast where I didn't eat. So
Yeah.
walking is a major thing. And I never really understood how much, like what that was really doing scientifically, but there's a book out there and I recommend anybody get it, whether you're addicted to food, drugs, alcohol, pornography, it doesn't matter. But it's called Dopamine Nation. It's by Dr. Anna Lemke. And she just talks about one of the chapters in there is called it's about walking, and it's called self-binding. So before I started walking, I was in my car one day and I was praying. I was smoking about 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and that was the first thing I really wanted to quit was the cigarettes. And I was just praying to God. I'm like, what do I need to do? Like, just tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it, and I'll start right now. And the message I got was just get out of your car and go walk. Just go walk. Leave your cigarettes in the car. Go walk, and we'll figure this out as we go along. So I said, all
Mm-hmm.
right, I'll go
Yeah.
do it. So that day I walked, and it was about 6 miles. It took a little over an hour and a half. And when I got back, I just felt totally refreshed. Like I felt like I'd been on vacation, mentally. And the biggest thing, referring back to that self-binding, is she talks about in this book, you put a physical barrier between you and your addiction. Again, whether it's food or whatever it is. So she talks about just getting away from it. Well, when I started on these long walks, I'd be gone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I'm like, well, I can't, if I don't bring any cigarettes with me, I can't smoke. It's just
Yeah.
impossible. So 2 hours turned into 5 or 6 hours. On the weekends, I'd walk for 7, 8 hours at a time and just get out and go. Well, if I sleep for 8 hours and I'm out walking for 8 hours, that's 2/3 of my day right there without having a cigarette in my hand. So it just made it so much easier, because I feel like human beings, when we're sitting around the house and we're bored, that boredom leads to desires, and those desires lead to vices, and it makes
Oh
it
yeah.
that much harder to quit anything. So, like I say, the message I got was just go walk, and I did, and really walking helped me quit cigarettes, helped me quit drinking completely, helped me quit smoking marijuana every day, because if you leave me in my house right now all day, I'll end up eating everything in my refrigerator. I'll end up probably smoking pot again, whatever. But these walks is what really, really helped me. And just mentally too, like my analogy for people is like, if you get a hose out in your garage and you see it's got about 35 knots in it, you look at it and you're like, I don't even know where to begin with this thing. And that's how I felt like my life was. Like there were so many knots in it,
Yeah.
so many tangles. I was like, I don't even know where do I even begin? So that's where walking came in. It kind of just untangled each little thing, where my hose is, it's not free, but it sure doesn't have as many knots as it used to in it. So I walk about 5 miles every day, no matter what. On the weekends, I try to get in 10 miles, and it's just, it saves me, because anytime I'm about to go crazy with temptations, I just get out and go walk, and they just disappear.
My uncle, he walks 5 miles a day, or he did till he passed away. But yeah,
Mm,
he would walk 5 miles a day. So
yeah.
I think, of course, like I mentioned, I'm in a wheelchair. I try to get out at least 5 times a day, five not a day, 5 times a week, and get out
Mm,
and go push my wheelchair just to look at Mother Nature. I'm like you. I think just being out there, it gives you time to think through your problems.
mm,
Um, Gives you time to relax. Gives you time, for this exercise to release some stress. There's a
mm,
lot of benefit in just getting out doing that. You don't
yeah.
have to swim 1,000 miles. Just
Right.
got to just get out there and walk. Just
Right.
people talk about how they meditate in the mornings, or something. Part of my meditation is getting out pushing and
Right.
just be up by myself and get that little exercise in. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I consider it a big form of meditation for me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People need to change their perspective on exercise, not so much look at it as the aesthetics or the physical part of it, and look at it as the more mental benefits. Like, yeah, I'm not going to get ripped and shredded and big out walking, and maybe I'll keep off my weight, but that's not why I do it. I do it for the mental benefits because
Hmm.
they're priceless, you know. Especially today's day and age with the cell phone and social media and just TVs on. I mean, like you were saying, to me, there's nothing better than getting out in nature. That's a big thing. Like I said, we moved from Florida, and like the beach is beautiful. We lived by Siesta Key Beach. It was beautiful, but like moving back here to Colorado, to me, there's nothing like the solitude of just getting out on a hike or out in the wherever. And I love humans. Don't get me wrong. I love my fellow man, but there's also
There's
it's
some
so
time I
beneficial just to
want to
be
be
by
away
yourself.
from them. That's right.
Right, right,
I'm like you. I love them, but there's times I want to get away from them.
right.
So, when in Colorado, I may be wrong. When in Colorado, the guy, I can't think of his name, Aaron Rosin, that got his arm trapped in that canyon. Was it, or
Oh,
is that Nevada? Where is that?
that was I think that was Utah. You're talking about that movie
Utah?
127 hours?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where he had his arm trapped
Right,
between
got
that
stuck.
boulder and the thing, and
Yeah, and you had to
broke it
saw it
loose and
off.
everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
Utah.
I think that was Utah. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was Colorado,
I
but I
know
know
he was down in a
exactly.
canyon and everything. And also want to mention you talk about hiking. Well, I wish I can get out there and go hiking. Uh, I used to do that before I got in a wheelchair. But a buddy of mine, him and his wife, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, started going out hiking more. And I just told him, said, "Man, I wish I can go with you. You just to
Yeah,
see the caves and go exploring and yeah." And
it's fun. It
he's
makes you feel like a little kid.
hey Scott, I'm talking about you. You're really listening to this man. That he's a Bigfoot believer. Okay,
No, yeah,
I'm not saying yes and no to it. I just want to say I've never seen any proof of it. Okay,
right. But it could exist.
so that's me. Until I see some proof of Bigfoot, I'm hesitant to believe in him. But my boy
Right.
Scott, he's a Bigfoot believer. So
Yeah.
hey, we all have our own things, so that's good.
Yeah.
So all right, so Aaron, if Aaron called you Aaron, thinking Aaron Rawson, Dallas, okay. So if there was one thing that you would tell people it's going through that struggle, and it doesn't have to be addiction or anything, just going through a struggle and they need to get out of it. What is the one key thing you think that ought to help them get started?
I mean, I know it's going to sound cliche, but I mean, well, obviously, I would say I mean, get out and walk. I mean, go out and walk, and that would be start there. But I would say more than anything is just don't quit or don't give up. And again, I know that sounds cliche, but that's like metaphors you'll get out when you're out walking. And I'll explain this to you real quick. Is like when I first started walking, I didn't like it. Right? I mean, who does? It's not
Yeah,
fun. It's not boring. But you pick up so many life metaphors when you're out walking, and one of those is like when you start out on your journey, you'll look across the way and you'll just look across the horizon over there and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to walk that far? It just seems forever away. But it's just one step at a time and you'll eventually get there. And that's just like anything in life. You obviously can't fly there, so don't worry about that. But just take one step. Slow motion is better than no motion.
there you go.
And eventually you will get there. So it's a life journey. You just don't give up, don't quit, and set your intention, set your mind on something, be positive, and you put in the work, you'll get there. So
Yeah,
like
I've
I said,
told
it's
other
with me.
Yeah, I've told other people who said, I don't care if you're moving at a snail's pace, as long as you're moving forward
Right.
in life, and the old thing, you may take 3 steps forward, and then next thing you know, you have 2 steps back because something happened. But
Yeah.
you're 1 step still in the good,
Right. Exactly.
for that. So just learn
Well,
from it, get the experience, and build a confidence on how you got through this to better prepare you for the next thing coming.
yeah. Well, to say too, that's another thing with walking is like you'll walk a long distance, and you'll look back, and you'll say, "Man, look how far I've came." Like my daughter, it's like pulling teeth to get her to walk, and I'm always telling her like, just put your head down, just take one step, and then she'll do that, and then she'll look back, and she'll like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, look how far we've gotten." And I said,
Yeah,
"It's just like life." You know what I mean? I mean, maybe a month or two, you'll look back like, "Wow, I've already came this far," and just in just a month or
exactly.
two.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. A life, what seems to be a long life, it's really a short span. But if you look at it carefully, you can see how far you have come in life, no matter what you've been beaten down with. And you'll see how
right.
far you really have come in life and to help other people and things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll tell you just lastly here, my journey of addiction and struggles, it was really about 25 years. I
yeah.
started when I was about 15, and up until I got sober last year completely, like no drugs, no out, no nothing.
Uh huh.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was about 25 years of pain, but I just never gave up. I knew someday things can change. So, just in a year, my life has changed. I mean, so much for the better. I'm coaching now, I'm helping other people. And I never would have thought in a million years, 3 years ago, I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What's the old Garth Brooks song, "The Dance," couldn't experience, without the dance, So,
right.
you couldn't be where you're at if it wasn't for the struggles to build you to put you where you're at today.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but Dallas, man, I'm glad I got to meet you on the good side. I mean, I would love to meet you on the other side
Yeah.
because I would have been the one trying to give you the positive stuff to help beat you,
Yeah.
get you out of it.
Right.
Okay, but I'm glad that you found the way and have gotten over there. So, and you're going to help a lot of people. There's a
Yeah, I hope
you know as
so.
well as there's a lot of people that's going through this A&D struggles and they
Right.
just don't know how to jump off the train
Right.
successfully without suicidal attempts from jumping. So,
Yeah.
you're going to help people in the long run. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you,
So,
sir.
hey, you got any social media, anything you want to push out for people to get hold of you?
Yeah. It's kind of where I talk to people in my coaching, where I start out helping them with
Uh
again
huh.
weight loss, mindset, nutrition. So it's kind of a play on words for walking, since again that changed my life. So it's Instagram handle. It's at the underscore walk underscore king.
Okay. Good deal.
So the
And
the walk king.
there you go. And I'll get that link and put it into the show notes to make it easier for people to
Okay.
find. So from there. All right.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And before I forget, like I did my last podcast, Dallas, if you can leave us with a positive message, we know that people are hurting and struggling today. Give them something to grab a hold of and get them through today.
Fill your heart with love and give people the benefit of the doubt always. I mean, look for the good in people. And, you know, I teach my daughter this too. How the world is not as it is, the world is as we are. It's how we see it. So if you see yourself in a bright, positive light, you're going to see the world that way too. And I know that can be hard, but start with the inside. And if you do that, your exterior world will change.
Amen, brother. Yeah, we can't change and control the world itself, but we can our world and
Right.
see the difference and know the difference we're making. So, all right, Dallas, I appreciate you being here, man. And
Yes, sir. Thanks, James.
don't be what's called a stranger. I enjoy talking with you today.
All
So,
right. Well, thank you very much.
all right, everybody else. Hey, I'm Dr. James Purdue, the Professor of Perseverance. Thank you for listening to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. Be sure to share this out with someone you think that can use some nice motivation here, some nice inspiration, something to let you know that went from a rock to a nice life. So, everybody else do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.